Selling a home can feel overwhelming, right? But it doesn't have to be. Renowned property expert Christopher Watkin simplifies the process in this interview, providing golden nuggets of advice to maximize your home's value. With over 20 years experience empowering buyers and sellers, Watkin cracks the code on what really counts when preparing your property to shine. From the power of professional photos to the secret behind strategic home staging, his sage wisdom helps you capitalize on often overlooked details that translate into serious value. If you want to master the art of showcasing your home in its best light while sailing smoothly through the sales process, do not miss this game-changing conversation. Watkin brings a wealth of insider tips to illuminate the path to selling success. So Chris, what is the one thing that truly maximizes the value of someone's home when they go to sell their property?
Okay, so I think what we need to do is look at how people buy houses, okay? And the first thing that people do is that when they go on the portals and they look at the photographs, okay? And I find it fascinating that most, a picture tells 1,000 words, and then you could say a video tells 1,000,000 words, but let's go with pictures. So those people out there selling their homes with write-ups, don't obsess about the write-up. Just make sure the rooms and the sizes, make sure you have a floor plan. That's important so people can visualize. But the big one is the photographs, okay? And, I find it fascinating that, the first thing that people will do is it's all a step process. Step one is to get them to stop scrolling. So your front shot needs to have the wow factor to grab people's attention. I find it fascinating that everybody wants a south-facing garden, but that means that the front is north-facing. Therefore, if the property is put on the market between October and March, it'll have no sun on the front and it'll look dreadful. So therefore, whereas people are scrolling past new properties coming on the market in March with a dark front, they will dismiss it. But those with, it comes on the market in January with sun on the front and the blue sky. Yes, because it's south-facing front, which means the back is cold. So it's really important as agents and that you take good photographs. But I think it's also particularly important for those people who are looking to sell their houses is that you do not allow your estate agent to put the house on the market until you have approved the photographs. Okay, and if the snow is outside, do not take the photographs unless there's something that's time sensitive where you have to crack on. But if you've got snow and the forecast is it's going in a few days, then you see many estate agents, not all, will just happen to be passing, and then they'll take the photograph with the snow on, which is great if you're going for a Santa house. But we're not selling Santa house; we're selling homes here. Wait, get a good, decent photograph of the front, and it looks the part. And then you've got the internal photographs as well. Now, again, we're all been a little bit guilty of agents doing photographs with so wide angle, and you go inside the house and you think, whoa, I'm not sure, that was a bit naughty. But again, good photographs, declutter, just get rid of your crap, People are buying their home. They're not buying your home. Okay? Okay?
I love that.
Therefore, they need to imagine themselves in your property. Look at your bookcases. And the bookcase cannot be more than 75% full. Because if it's 100% full, it doesn't look big enough, so therefore it's creating it's a bit tight in here, but you've got a bit of space there. Look at your sideboards. Again, it doesn't want to be much more than 50% full. Look at everywhere where there's knickknacks. You don't want to put too much in there. So good photographs now. So you got, it goes out saying a good price. We'll come to price in a second, John. But a good photograph, main one, that 70, 75%, 80%. I'm going to go 80% of whether someone clicks on your property will be on that front shot. So it's going to be absolutely banging. Then the rest of the photographs need to be good as well, and they have to tell a story. Now, again, just like the CV doesn't get you the job, it gets you the interview. So is the same with your photographs. You don't need 40 images. You need 10, 11, somewhere around there. And it must tell a story that leads them through. Make sure in the right order, that starts with main receptions and leads them through. And you don't have to take a photograph of every room. The job of the photographs is to get the viewing, just like the CVs to get the interview. Make sure your price is right. I mean, I'll share with you some stats because John, that I'm a real stato.
Mm-hmm.
This is interesting. In 2022, for every 100 houses that left estate agents' books, 65.5% of them, the homeowner moved, and the other 35% or 34.5% didn't move. So it came off the market unsold. So therefore, 65 out of 100 people moved in 2022. In 2023, that figure nationally has dropped to 52.4%. So therefore, for every 100 houses that have left estate agents' books in 2023, and we're filming this in the middle of December, only 52.4% of people have moved. The other 47.6 haven't moved. And this is also interesting. Again, that number is a national figure. Let's just quickly whiz through the regional stats because the numbers are all over the place. So inner London, 35% of people moved, 65 didn't. Outer London, 43. Southeast, 47% moved in 23. Southwest, 53% people moved, 47% didn't move. East Anglia, 47. East Midlands, 51. West Midlands, 55. North East, 58. Northwest, 55. Yorkshire and Humberside, 59. Scotland, 77.8. Wales, 56.5. And Northern Ireland, 77. So the national average, 52%. So in 2023, of all the people that put their houses on the market, only 52% of people moved home. The other 48% didn't sell and didn't move home. And that's why you're having this podcast is how do you make yourself part of the 52 and not the 48? Well, the big one is the asking price of your property. Okay. That is the big one. Okay. Now, some people say your choice of agent. Now, I would say this, the choice of the agent in terms of finding the buyer is not as important as what the agent will do later on in the process. So does it matter which estate agent you choose to find a buyer for your house? It does, but it's not as vital as the second part, which I'll come on to a second. Because they'll all probably take professional photographs because everyone's got good photographs and you can take some decent photos now with iPhones. In fact, many agents I know used iPhones. But if all the agents are putting it on Rightmove and Zoopla and any other on the market and any other portal, and they're doing a nice brochure, nice photographs, and they're ringing out their database, then most people put themselves in every database. So does it really matter which agent you go with? For that part, yeah, but not as important as the second part, John. And that is once they've found a buyer, getting the property through to completion. That is isn't it interesting? And I'm not going to mention any names, but the top three agents in London by size, one agent will get 25% of the properties through. One agent will get them 30% through, and the other one will get 54% of the properties through. I'm not going to mention names, but that is where the agents earn their dollar. Is not only can you find me a buyer, and yes, there are some agents that can really screw that one extra person, the extra 10 grand, go for it. Yeah, you'll know. And there are firms out there that produce stats for agents, and you can ask agents for these stats. But it's once you've found me a buyer, are you going to get this bad boy through to exchange, which is and then legal completion, which means you get the keys and you can move to the next chapter of your life.
It's really, really, really interesting. I suppose those sellers that their intention changes. So actually we were moving, but now we're not. We'll just discard those a little bit. It's discard those. But for the other sellers out there, their tension hasn't changed. They did want to move. Why? You mentioned price. Is it price is the only thing with a little bit of like the agent doesn't really know what they're doing when they actually find a buyer?
I would say 80% of it is price. Definitely. Definitely. The bottom line is this, is that it's not like the old days. I mean, I've got grey hair. I'm in my early 50s. And when I were a lad as an estate agent, you had to pick up the local rag, and you were genuinely, when you learnt a new area, you had to buy 2 of the local rags because they were double-sided, and you had to cut the newspapers out and put them into like a collage book of all the terraced houses and all the 2-bed semis and all the 3-bedroom semis, because you had to learn what your prices were. And I can remember, my wife and we met an estate agent, and I was very, I should have given her my collage book as a token of love. There you go. I probably could have. She sat opposite now. But that's how we learnt our prices. But and if that was that hard, then homeowners wouldn't know the prices. So they had estate agents to come and tell them. But everybody knows the value of their own home, don't they? But I think what it comes down to is there's a thing in estate agency called overvaluing. Now, I know you know what that means, John, but there'll be some people listening to this that don't know what it means. And the bottom line is this, is that the asking price is designed to get people through the door. Now, if you've got a 4-bedroom detached house and everyone on your estate is on at, say, £450,000, and you've put yours on at 495, and I can look at the photographs because Rightmove and Zoopla put all the properties together, then yours sticks out like a sore thumb. And people look at it and they go, well, I can't see why it's worth that. And again, I find it, again, fascinating that people will only view on average 5 or 6 houses before they buy one. So everybody's looking for an excuse not to view it, not necessarily a reason to view it. So, that looks, so you go on Rightmove, 450 to 500, and in a particular area, and there's all your 4 beds, and yours will stick out like a dirty, great big sore thumb. And unless, people say, well, I can see why it's worth that, then they won't view it. And you could say, well, the homeowners will say, well, just get them round. But then you're not, if you're viewing ones and you're looking at something at 600 and something's on at 650, you're not going to go around it because you don't want to waste your time. So you can't have your cake and eat it. So that, people will not view a house. So why do people put their houses on the market for too much money? And it really comes down to a couple of reasons. One is the homeowner's fault, and the other one is the estate agent's fault. So which one do you want me to talk about first, John?
Homeowners.
We are all emotionally attached to our homes, aren't we? And when I were an estate agent, I always used to hear this phrase, and it only cottoned on to me after about 10 years. And you would go around the house and you would say, Mrs. Biggins, your 3-bedroom semi is worth £100,000, in my humble opinion. And then the amount of people that use this line, XYZ agent, are prepared to give me 110. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you've heard that phrase. ABC agents are prepared to give me. And I don't know what it is about human beings, because we're not logical, we're very emotional, is that they see these agents, they see it as the agents giving them the money, when in reality, it isn't the agents giving them the money. So, and I can see why, you've got 2 agents offering 100 grand each, or suggesting 100 grand, and then you get silver-tongued, shiny suit estate agent rocking up in his little Vauxhall Vectra, okay, and saying 110. And then all of a sudden, the 10, you think to yourself, well, he works for XYZ estate agent. If he reckons we can get 110, then that's more pound notes in our back pocket. So that's why But then the problem is that then it goes on to the market at 110 and sticks there. Now, Which did some reports about 3 or 4 years ago, and you can type this in, which estate agents overvaluing. And what they found is that 110 property, if you put it on for 110, if the estate agent doesn't drop the price pretty quickly within the first 4 weeks or so, because that's the magic time, the agent will do what we call a salami. So they'll take it to 107, then they'll take it to 105. And then, because most estate agents, a lot of the estate agents who I think are that I think this must ring alarm bells with homeowners is if the estate agent is signing you up for a 20-week contract or a 26-week sole agency contract, then they're going to salami slice your asking price if it doesn't sell. So what happens is that all of a sudden, whilst you've been on the market for 8, 16, 17 weeks, and eventually you get to 100 where it should be, it doesn't have the same impact. And people are saying, must be something wrong with it. And if there's something wrong with it, then the amount of times I've seen that same house have to go under at 95 to get it away because people think there's something wrong with it. So you would think, because the second one is the estate agents, you would think, so why do estate agents overinflate their valuations? Because they only get paid when they sell the house. And I think that's a pretty reasonable question to ask, don't you think, John?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I know you know this, but not many people listening to this. But there are plenty of estate agents out there who pay commission to their people when they put a house on the market, irrespective of whether the property sells or not. Just repeat that. They pay a big chunk of the person's bonus, not whether it sells or not, but whether it puts it on the market. And then the people in the office, who are called negotiators, they get paid bonuses on reducing your price. Meanwhile, the property of your dreams that you want to put on the market goes and sells because you put it on the market for too much money. And you lose out. And eventually you'll probably, and if you do salami slice it after 20 weeks, you might have to lose money as well. Meanwhile, the property of your dreams is gone because the property's stale. And there's another thing as well is, so not only do many agents get paid bonuses to list a property, what you've got to remember is this, is that the UK estate agency, or the type of person that is attracted to be an estate agent, their personality type. So if anyone wants to look this up, Google DISC, as in D-I-S-C, as in round disc. Okay. And it's a profiling system, and you can put people into different categories depending on the type of person they are. Now, most estate agency valuers are on the I profile of DISC. And I don't want to get too technical here, but I think it's important you know why they do this, because if you know why they do it, then you can spot it potentially, because the purpose of this is to help homeowners sell their houses. Is this the I profile on estate agent, the I profile on DISC profiling? They are above, so they are above the line when it comes to being outward and vivacious. So if you're below the line, you are reserved. So my wife, she's below the line. She's a reserved person. Whilst I'm above the line, I'm outward going, right? And then the next question we ask is, are you a people person or a process person? Now, again, a lot of people always say people. So the way to answer that one is whether you're a people or process person is, if you had a problem to solve, would you use your personality to try and persuade someone to do something? Or would you use cold, hard process to solve that problem? And most estate agents use their people skills. So they are above the line on outward going, and they are people, not process people, to solve problems. That's how you know which part you are, which means they are in the I profile. Again, stay with me, ladies and gentlemen. That type of personality is very, very good at persuading people to do things, which means they're very good at persuading you that they're the best estate agent to use to sell their house. Their downside, and they're confident, they're outward going, they're vivacious, they're infectious. People love you. And that's where the biggest weakness is that everybody wants that personality type, wants everyone to love them. And their biggest fear is rejection. And for the vast majority, not all, the vast majority of estate agents in the UK, getting the property on the market is more important than selling the property, even though most of them do get paid when they actually sell it, because they're getting one over on their competition. And that might shock some people listening to this, but that is how most, not all, most estate agents think and act. They get a hit from getting your business because you love them. Because if you tell an estate agent that you've lost their business and they've gone with another agent, honestly, and John, we've all been there, they will be like a bear with a sore head, and they will F and blind, and they will scream, and but isn't it interesting that in Australia and America, they're more what we call DIs. They're halfway between the two. So they still got some people skills, but they're a bit more processy as well. And if they lose the property, they think to themselves, not effing this, effing that, they hate me, I'm awful. They think to themselves, right, how could I have done that better? How could I have been a better estate agent? How did I not prove to the owner that their house was worth £100,000 and not 110? Instead, they just walk around like a child with a pair of stingy legs, as my mother would say, sulking for a couple of hours because they've lost the business. So why is that important to homeowners? If you know how estate agents think and act, then you know how to deal with it. And I think the magic thing is this: judging your properties and where they sell. What I would suggest people do, again, if I'm rambling on, John, just stop.
No, crack on. I'm loving it.
Okay. What I want people to do is if they own a 4-bedroom detached house, let's say they own, I live in the town of Grantham in Lincolnshire. So the first thing I would be doing is I've got a pretty good idea where I think the value of the property is. Don't know, but I think I do. So let's just say I think my 4-bedroom detached house is worth £400,000. The first thing I will do is I will go onto Rightmove and I will go detached house, 4 beds, and I'll go 325 up to 475. I might even go 300 to 500. The first thing that I will do, though, is I will click include sold subject to contract and put them in price order. Go and look at what the property offers, but take off your rose-tinted glasses. Print off all the brochures. A lot of them will have the square footages on them. And if they don't have the square footages, download the EPC, because that's the Energy Performance Certificate, because it does have the square meterage. And look and say, right, that's the 4-bed in that estate, and it's got that amount of space. That's got 3 receptions. That's got 2 receptions and a conservatory. That has a large garden. And remove emotion. So my advice is this: go down to the local supermarket and purchase a couple of bottles of refreshing Sauvignon Blanc or whatever your tipple of choice is, and get some friends round and get all the brochures, get them to walk around the house after not too many glasses of wine, and then get them, because they'll tell you without emotion, is where would you put our property, and more importantly, why?
Yes.
Why? So if you say 425, and you can say, well, why? Because there's a property here. Because this is the magic thing, is this: include sold subject to contracts. You see, there are some wonderful data, as you know, I'm a bit of a data geek. And since 2008, even in the worst market, the percentage difference between the asking price and the sale agreed has never gone below 2%. It's always, apart from 2011, 2021 and a bit of 22 when it went over the asking price, only by an average of about 2%, by the way. But since 2008, even in the worst of the market, apart from those 2 years, it's always been between 0 and -2% difference, okay? So if you know what a property's sold for, you know it's within 2% of the asking price. Hence why it's important that you put the property on at a fair asking price, not to put it on at too much to be knocked down, because the buggers won't come through the door. And no one's going to knock you 30 grand off.
Yeah.
And get your friends to methodically look and say, where is our property in this? And then when an estate agent comes round and says to you, 450, ask them, how long is your sole agency agreement? 26 weeks. Okay, I'm prepared to give you this property on a 1 week rolling contract. And if they squirm, then I'm sorry, they're not putting their money where their mouth is. Or a 2 week one, give them 2 weeks. Okay, but if they're not prepared to put their money where their mouth is, then they're probably not always, but they might be on some form of listing bonus. Hey, they even get bonuses if they get a certain market share of the listings. So your property that you're putting on for 475, it should be 400 or 450. They're probably doing it because they're going to get a listing bonus, but also they're going to get an extra bonus because hey, they've hit their market share target.
Absolutely.
That's
so basically, so effectively what we're saying in addition to making sure decluttering, professional pictures, making sure you're telling the story, absolutely making sure the floor plan is there. If it's not there, look on the EPC for the square meterage. But also, you're very interested, and I love that idea, by the way, getting the friends over so they can give you an honest opinion, because friends will, right? But also business model. What is the business model of the agent? And you could effectively get told that by, if they squirm at 26 week contract, actually the business model is to get instructions, not actually to sell the property straight away.
Yep. Bang on.
In a nutshell. Absolutely. But I need to ask you another question though as well, Chris, right? How do you earn your money?
I help estate and letting agents grow their agencies by creating stat-heavy articles on their local property markets, which won't be, which a lot of people listening might have read my stuff, but I ghostwrite for agents, so they won't know it's me and my team. But anyway, let's not talk about me. I'm not. No one cares about me. Let's get back to the punters. Okay, the people listening to this. I said earlier on about. It's not about finding the buyer, it's getting it through. Is what percentage of house sales fall through at your agency? Again, I've got the stats for the whole country. In the top 10 estate agents, there are agents where 35, 40% of their properties fall through. And there are other agencies where the fall through rates are in the 20s. Sorry. I'm a huge, massive fan of what's called reservation agreements. Reservation agreements are where you basically, the buyer and the seller have like a little contract, which basically says if either of us pull out, we pay each other's costs for a couple of grand. Well, that is interesting because the fall through rates are in single figures, like 7, 8, 9%. Because nationally, 24.8% of properties nationally will fall through between sale agreed and the exchange of contracts.
Yeah.
So you need to find out from your agent is how many of your properties fall through. Now, some of that might not be the fault of the agent, because if there's a chain, but a good agent with a good sales chaser will keep the chain together.
Yeah. Go up and down that chain, take responsibility, even though they maybe got one link in the chain, they're actually going up and down to keep their eyes firmly on what's happening. Totally agree.
Definitely.
Yeah. No, do you know what? It's a really good insight. Because obviously I know what you do and I know what you've done, and obviously how well versed you are in estate agency, but I know how well regarded with the work that you do, probably one of the biggest names in UK estate agency as well. So it's wonderful to have you on, but also more importantly, having your insight as well. Because you're not just saying things that sound nice, you've actually got the stats. I know you're processed. I know you're very stats driven, which is perfect, because it means then stats don't lie, figures don't lie. And it is what it is. I mean, if you're one of those agents that have got, for every 100 properties you get on, you sell 35 of them, that's bad. That is really, really, really bad. And the agent is only looking after one element as just themselves. They're not thinking about the sellers that they're working with, or they're just business models to say things that sound nice to win instructions and be gutted if they lose the instruction and be seeing their regional manager for about the KPIs on Monday morning meeting.
I mean, not for homeowners, but estate agents. There's a couple of software platforms out there that will give you these stats. I'm a big fan of 20EA and their insights platform. I'm not being paid by them to market them. I just love their stats, and that platform will give you the stats that I've just been mentioning for your town. And I think the important thing is again, a note for the estate agents out there is that human beings make decisions in a particular way. And it's really important that, and again, for homeowners, when they're buying a house, when a human being makes a decision, both sides of the brain have to say yes, the emotional and the logical. But isn't it interesting that 19 out of 20 decisions that actually follow through and get made, the emotional side has to say yes first. So bring it all the way back to, you said at the start, first impressions, that's why it's important when someone does a viewing that first impressions count. Actually, I'll give you some tips on how to do viewings in a second, John, because I've got a big tip for you there on that one. So whenever you're, an estate agent, you're trying to persuade someone to use your agency, then tell the stories first, then hit them but with the numbers afterwards. If you're a homeowner, tell the story first and then the facts afterwards. Now, a little tip for you when it comes to doing viewings, John, do you believe with the premise that people remember the last thing they see?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So here's a massive tip for estate agents doing viewings, but homeowners as well. In fact, what you should do is just click this out because it's going to be a great little piece for you, John. Okay, so the property has three main elements. We're assuming this is a two-story house, which is pretty fair for most houses in the UK. You have a downstairs, you have a upstairs, and you have an outside. That's a fair comment, isn't it? All right. So the magic thing is this, is that whenever you're going to do a viewing on a property, what you've got to decide is that if you had to put those in order, which ones are better? Okay. Downstairs, upstairs, or garden. And normally is there's more rooms upstairs than there are downstairs. There's a 4-bedroom house, will probably have 6 rooms upstairs, but probably only have 3 downstairs: lounge, dining room, kitchen, 4 bedrooms, bathroom, and ensuite. So the rooms upstairs are not as big. So normally in a 4-bedroom detached house, if you had to make a choice between the upstairs and the downstairs, you would normally say the downstairs is better than the upstairs. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Then you would ask yourself, right then, which one's more important? Which one's better, the upstairs or the garden? And normally, in most cases, the garden is better than the upstairs. So therefore, logic says that you do the viewing in this order: upstairs, garden, downstairs. So how do you do that? Right, okay. So the worst thing you can do is walk straight up the stairs. So the step one is bring them into the holding area, which normally is a reception room. If it's a big hall, that's great, but normally most people haven't got big halls. So bring them into the holding area, which is normally the sitting room or the dining room or whatever at the front, okay? And introduce yourself. For God's sake, please don't let people go look around by themselves. Do not do that, and under any circumstances. You control it. So what you do is you bring them into the room and then you position yourself as if you're near the staircase, okay, or the door that's closest. You say, "Hi, my name's Chris. Thanks for coming around the house. What we'll do is this. I tell you what, we'll go upstairs first because I'm near the stairs now. Let's go have a look upstairs." So now you take them upstairs. Now all the doors are going to be open. Now normally with most houses you have a landing with doors off. Most people would go master bedroom, 2nd bedroom, bathroom, and end up in the 4th bedroom, which is a box room. So you're leaving them with a really small room. No, you're going to do it the other way around. You're going to work out which order, starting from small to big, you're going to go in. And what you do is this: you never go into a room yourself first. So if you're walking up the landing and you're going to the third bedroom and you have to walk past your bedroom, you walk up the stair taking control, walk past into your bedroom, take a step back because the door's open, and then follow them through, and then usher them through into the third bedroom. So they stand in the doorway, and then you're behind them, and then you do what we call the air stewardess bit. So you point there. This is the third bedroom. This is the fourth bedroom. It's got a window. It overlooks the front, and then you put the single bed there with the wardrobe, and it's got a few PowerPoints. Your next bedroom is probably on the other side of the landing, so you're in control. So you then take them across, put your back into, say, the bathroom, and let them. So once you've done that small bedroom, walk, because you're in the landing, because you're in control, walk to another doorway and then usher them through, and then just work up to the rooms as you go, getting bigger, bigger, bigger. This is important. We said that the garden would be next. So whichever room you're in, which has the best view of the garden, point out to the garden and say, oh, there you can see there's a view of the garden. We'll go and look at that in a second. Okay? So small to big, working up, point out the garden as you go. Because now, once you've done the master bedroom, remember, you're in control because you never go into a room yourself first. You now come back onto your landing. As you walk down the stairs, you say, I tell you what, let's go and look at that garden now. And what tends to happen is, because most houses start with a lounge at the front, then there's a dining room and a kitchen, is this. You walk through the lounge. Notice it's the second time you're in the lounge. You walk through the dining room, and you probably even walk through the kitchen. And if they start, oh, this is a lovely kitchen, you say, well, come look at this in a second, because you've said coming down the stairs, let's go and look at that garden. And you go into the garden. If you were smart and it's not too wet, you will actually walk all the way down to the bottom of the garden to look back. You see, most people will just look at the garden. But if you, as you leave the house, walk down the garden, you're getting the garden from one angle. And when you turn around 180 degrees, you get the garden from a different angle. And the human perception is, because we're not logical, we're emotional, is it doubles the size of the garden because it's a different garden. Because we're dealing with animal, we're emotional animals. So by walking down and looking back, so say, come on, let's go look. So you walk through the dining room, walk through the kitchen. Oh, this is the kitchen. Oh, yeah, we'll come back to that in a second. Take that right. Let's go look at. Tell you what, let's go. Tell you what, let's do this. Let's walk down the bottom of the garden. Do the garage. You might want to, if you've got a front garden, why don't you walk down the side of your house and look at the garden, the front garden, and then walk them back down the garage, down the driveway into the back garden. So it's the third time they've hit in the garden. 3 times they hit in the garden, so the garden appears 3 times as big. Now you can start going inside, and you could probably start kitchen, then dining room, and then you crescendo up to the lounge. You've gone through the lounge 2 or 3 times. You've been through the garden 2 or 3 times. You've gone backwards and forwards on the drive. Your house will appear twice as big.
Yeah.
And at the end of the conversation, you say, thank you very much for the viewings. So what I want now, again, some agents are going to disagree with me on this one. But what I would say is this: do not let them off the loose. Do not let them go and view at the house by themselves. Now, some people will disagree with me. This is my opinion, is this. You thank them very much and say, thank you for your time today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let's leave it at that. What I would say is this: if you'd like a second viewing, please contact my estate agent. And on the second viewing, I'm more than happy to let you loose and you can look around by yourselves. But I wouldn't be letting people loose on the first one, because remember, the viewing, hardly anyone buys a house on the first viewing. They buy it on the second viewing. And I just think you're more likely to turn people, you've choreographed this. Mm-hmm. Okay? Well, get all your lights on. Remember to switch all your lights on, but probably not the main ones, but all the baby ones as well. Declutter, like we said. And just say then, thank you very much for your interest. Let's leave it at that. We've got another viewing in about 10 minutes time, so let's leave it at that. If you'd like to have a view, whether you have or not, little white lie never hurt anyone. And say, let's leave it at that. And if you'd like to have a second viewing where you can come round and be let loose, be more than happy to do it. To do that. Now, if they do ask, can we look round now by ourselves? Yeah, let them go. But if they don't ask, just choreograph them out the front door and come back and be let loose. That's what I would do.
But equally, what you're actually doing is taking on a journey like they're walking through a film set. And
Yep.
as you said earlier, and I absolutely love it, and people are buying their home, they're not buying yours. It was like, I think, tell me if I'm wrong on that second part of the sentence, but that is just, I absolutely love it. And this, when you're talking about viewings, actually you're taking them on a journey, because if I'm having to walk through the kitchen to get to the garden, I'm looking at the kitchen as I'm going out into the garden, and now I'm seeing the garden, turning round, it looks bigger, but I'm anticipating, I want to see that kitchen as well. And so again, it's like, wow, actually, this is like, I'm walking around with Phil Spence or Kirsty Allsop. I'm not walking around with any old Tom, Dick and Harry agent. I'm with somebody that is really trying to be useful and actually, creating or molding and shaping the story that I want to see. Yeah, absolutely love that, Chris. I love that.
Lovely.
Mate, honestly, you've been absolutely fantastic on this podcast. Thank you so much for coming on it. Really appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for what you do with the podcast. And I know lots of people get a lot of benefit from it. So just keep pumping it out there. And if we can help one person make a better move and move on to the next chapter of their life, making it easier and simpler, then it's worth our time and effort. So thank you on behalf of the industry and home buyers and sellers for what you do with this podcast. Thank you, sir.